Apologies if there's a jump cut shortly after this begins. I lost a bit of my start originally, so I'm having to redo it. Just a random video really in some respects, just to get this off my list of things to do, because I haven't had a chance to do a full-on toy video between work and life and everything else. So what I thought I would just do is give you an update on sort of how my workflow has changed since I got this, which is my Sony ZV-E10, which I've picked up second hand. It's been very, very handy, as I was hoping. It shoots in 4K video, which was a boon for me for reasons which I'll get into in a moment, but I actually want to talk about something that was driving me nuts when I first got this, and which ended up being a complete doubt moment on my part, ultimately. So you see, I've been using one of these nice DJI mics. It was a new purchase for me. Whoops, and now it's on the floor. And I knew that I needed something to use audio-wise with this. The camera takes audio, but if I move away from the camera, of course, the audio drops off. And I thought, I need wireless audio to really make this work effectively. Because ironically, the wireless kit that I'd got for my mobile, which is what I had been using up to this point for all my videos, wouldn't connect with the camera. So, having forked out for the DJI, I thought this will be dead easy. It'll all be nice and plug and play. I won't have to worry about a thing. Unfortunately, I didn't allow for the human factor, which was this human who's occasionally a bit of an idiot. So I got this second hand, and the camera came with one of these small rigs sort of wrapped around it, and it had a base for a tripod attached to it. It's really, really handy for me. But this was the kicker for me personally. When I looked at it, this flap was kind of always open on the side, and there's an audio in socket just there. So I thought that's where I put the DJI's audio in, because that seems to be the most obvious place to put it. I don't have a manual for the camera, so I'm assuming that's where I put it. Mistake. That's the audio out, not the audio in. And I didn't realise that there was another socket. So hidden under this sort of morass of stuff here, there's actually another little tiny socket up here, which is normally covered by a flap. And because the small rig cage was around it, I hadn't noticed it. So it was only when I'd done a lot of extensive searching that I noticed on, I don't know, some video or other, that actually there was this other port section that I was missing. Because normally I just had this port open with a USB cable into it to recharge the battery or to connect it to my PC. So lo and behold, up here where you can see this lead going in from the DJI receiver, this is the audio in jack for the camera. So once I'd found that, I didn't then have to return the DJI thinking it was broken in some way, because I was the one who was broken, not the DJI or indeed my camera. So good. But I mention that in passing because I can't be the only person who's ever been flummoxed by that, having got one like this, maybe with a rig on it already, and just found it obscured and didn't have the manual. It's such a tiny little thing compared to the main flap. You could easily overlook it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So why did I get this? Why did I get this when my phone could actually, albeit it's very old now and needs an upgrade, but in theory this could take 4K video. But the problem is, this phone's got loads of other apps and stuff on it, so its storage is finite, inevitably. And to give you an idea, my workflow when I was using the phone was phone attached to a tripod and wireless mic, record onto the phone uploads automatically to OneDrive, so by the time I get up here from filming downstairs, the odds are the video file is already on OneDrive in HD for me to use, to edit on the PC to then upload onto YouTube. So that worked fine up to a point, because then my OneDrive started to fill up with video files. And I was like, oh, okay. Plus, inevitably, the phone storage will not allow me to do 4K video for any length of time, nor would its battery or anything else. It would get warm. It would sort of say, I'm suffering here, just no. So, until I got the camera, I wasn't filming in 4K. So, limitation. And what the camera has allowed me to do, although it isn't as clever in terms of automatically uploading to OneDrive, but that doesn't bother me because my OneDrive would have filled up pretty rapidly anyway because there's loads of stuff in it already. But what the camera allows me to do, of course, is to have dedicated memory in the camera that is just for videos. So I don't need to worry about running out of storage space or doing 4K video and melting the device, because the camera can hack it. So from my point of view, from a workflow point of view, I don't need to think about storage every 5 seconds when I'm doing a video. I can get about an hour's worth of video quite happily onto, I think it's a 64 gig memory card, which probably isn't even the biggest card this could take. I just nabbed one that I had lying around. So, it gives me a lot of versatility, and the screen flips out at the back of it, which is something I've always wanted to be able to do. So I can point it at myself and see whether or not I'm actually in frame as it's doing the video, which is a great help when you're doing the sort of stuff that I'm doing. Now, yes, it's completely obscured by this daft arm, but even then I could still see enough of me to know that I'm going to be in frame or not, which on the phone was much more challenging because I was just reliant on it pointing in the right general direction, and I could figure that out from the way I'd aimed it. That was perfectly possible, but it's nice to have the confirmation using something like this. So those were two elements which were really bonuses. I do have to keep an eye on the battery charge level. That can be a bit of an issue with it, so generally I will keep a spare battery with me, and I have sort of done a quick swap on occasion when I've been walking around toy fairs with it. That is a downside. Obviously the weight and the size are a downside compared to the mobile, sure, inevitable, but the actual sort of the image quality that I get from it just feels that little bit richer somehow. That might just be the 4K, of course, but I'm using a conventional lens to get zoom. Now, the downside of that I found, which wasn't something I was anticipating but makes perfect sense to me, and there may be workarounds for this that I haven't realised yet, or I need to research some more, but when I take a picture with my camera, pretty much everything is in focus. You can pretty much guarantee that everything in the shot is going to be in focus. When I'm in macro mode, so when I'm up close to something with the camera, you get a sort of a slice of distance which is absolutely in focus. Things behind that tend to be out of focus because the macro has a sort of a very defined length at which it works, basically. So for me, doing a lot of smaller close-up recording, that has been a little bit of a negative at times. If I pull back away, it's more tolerant, but then of course I lose the size of the image. So I could zoom in and then lose some of the benefit of the 4K. Digitally zooming there afterwards, or I film it naturally up close, but I have to watch the focus quite hard. Now, it's got quite a clever tool built into the camera whereby it will automatically focus on things that are being sort of brought near it. So I think it's described as a sort of an object mode or a sort of merchandising sort of mode, so it will actually kind of lock on to what it's looking at. And that does seem to work quite well most of the time. It's rare that I have to encourage it to refocus. But it's the sort of thing that a modern phone would do very well automatically. I have got this with a view to replacing my main old camera, because I like the idea that I'm going to be able to get a better lens for it ultimately, although not cheap, but I will get a better lens for it ultimately, and that will allow me to do serious zoom shots, which at the moment I can only do with a moderate extent. This is only a sort of 35 to 50mm lens, so it's not huge in terms of what it can do, but it's absolutely fine as a starter lens for this camera, and it's not the default one, it's quite a nice Sigma one, so it was a really nice package that I was able to pick up locally to my own surprise, because I would have felt nervous getting it just at a distance and getting it posted, but I was actually able to physically collect it, which was nice. So yeah, I mean, it's very versatile. Inevitably there have been others released since then. Will continue to be others released afterwards that will be better, but they'll also be probably be pricier, and as yet they haven't really been tested. So there are pluses and minuses to it, but for me it works fine. The other thing it does lack as a negative is in-body stabilization. So if I try walking around with this, the image goes all over the place. You can allow for that by trimming the image, but then you lose some of the image resolution in doing that, of course. And my lens does not have any stabilization built into it either, because it's not that high end of a lens. So at the moment my thinking is basically gimbal, because the gimbal will probably give me a sort of an external stabilization, which I don't currently have, because the lens and the camera itself don't really go for that. So if you want to do a lot of moving shots, I'd actually go with something like one of the DJI action cams, because my son's actually got one of those. I got him that for Christmas, and the sort of footage that he's been able to take from that, just with it sort of mounted on his chin on the helmet, is really impressive. It's nice, it's bright, it's crisp, it's 4K, and the camera's about yay big. And it's got the stabilization functionality built into it because it's designed to do that. Obviously, you can't attach a bigger lens to it, although I think there are some adaptation things you can do with them. But it's not rigged for that. It's just very, very good at what it does do. So for me, for toy fairs, for example, I'm seriously considering one. Maybe not the most recent release, but one of those would be quite handy for toy fairs, even if it's just a backup. I could take still images with the big camera and just have video rolling all the time on a DJI, and my DJI mic that I've got will automatically link up with that camera. So one of the reasons I chose DJI was that I was thinking that, well, if I do get something else in the DJI family, my mic is going to work with it. So I think it's been a good purchase, and there is something quite nice about the photos with it as well. The actual just straight out of the box settings, the photos the camera produces are very good, very high res compared to what I'm used to anyway. And it's a great replacement camera for my old Canon. I'm borrowing my old Canon strap on this one just for the sake of recycling, if nothing else. But it was just one of those happy coincidences in life where I just happened to have enough spare cash to do it, and one came up locally, and I'd hit that sort of research peak where I was happy that I'd done enough research that I knew what I was talking about roughly, so I could go ahead and commit to it without buyer's regret afterwards. And I got a tripod and all sorts of bits and bats with it as well, so I really cannot argue with the value for money I got out of that eBay purchase. So yeah, it was really, really good. So that was all I really wanted to say on that front. It was just my, that shift in the workflow. And in case you're wondering what I do in terms of the footage, I've actually got a very, very ancient LAN-based storage, backup drive, basically. So I very, very slowly download from the camera onto that to clear the footage down. But it's got far more space than my OneDrive account has, and I very rarely go back to the raw footage I've used anyway. It's purely from my sort of quasi hoarding tendency with my files, I think, that I'm saving it. But it means that I don't have to. My OneDrive can then be used more for, what it's intended for, which is like the online backup from my camera phone. So that'll just happily upload to OneDrive, and it's still got space on it. So that works fine. And my camera has its own sort of dedicated solution for that now. So I'm completely out with the mobile solution, which to my mind makes a bit more sense anyway. This is better long term for me for what I'm doing on a regular basis at the moment. So I just thought I'd share that with you, and I particularly wanted to share my idiocy on the audio front, just in case, on the off chance somebody else picks up one of these second hand and is confuddled by the fact that they can't find, or can't sort of solutionize what's going wrong with their audio recording, because I was gutted when that didn't work. I mean, the audio recording on the actual camera itself is actually quite effective, as long as you've got a wind guard for it. It's probably pretty good. But as I say, I'm not really intending to take this outside overly much, because as I've discovered, unless you're shooting off a tripod with it, which is fine, that's definitely one way to go. That's a great option if you're stationary. But if you're going to be moving, it's probably not going to be the best option for you out of the box. I think if you could get a lens with stabilization, you might well be laughing. And I knew that going into it. I knew that could be an issue, and indeed it was, because the first time I took it around Doncaster, it was hilarious. I looked like I was drunk. It was that bad. It was fine once I sort of stopped and was looking at something slowly. Then it worked, but actually on foot, it's just sort of a constant up, down, and everywhere you look, it looks. And one thing I've also found with this as well is that the screen on the back of it is not really representative of the quality of image that you're going to get out the other end. So I think if nothing else, it warned me that my glasses needed upgrading, which they now have been. But nonetheless, it's not the best display. The software is quite old school. It's quite sort of clunky compared to what you'd find on a more modern version, certainly compared to a modern mobile. But it's an actual real life proper camera with proper lenses, and that is kind of what you're going for. But it just looks like it would, if you got into it seriously, it would be quite an expensive hobby, let's put it that way. So best to get second-hand lenses and so on if you can. That's probably about the only way it's going to be moderately affordable. So I mean, again, I've not committed to another lens for it yet, but I do want to get one that's got a little bit more zoom power to it, ideally, because my son likes to photograph planes, and this is a bit naff for that sort of work at the moment. And you'd be better off just pinching and zooming in with your mobile for that, as compared with this. Whereas for my old camera, I did have a better lens, but unfortunately, part of what prompted me to make this switch is that big lens bit the dust. So at this point, I don't have a larger lens, so I just thought I might as well just change the family of camera at this point, because there's not much point getting a new lens for a very old camera ultimately. So I hope that's been of use if you were thinking around this at all. I've probably forgotten half of what I picked up from YouTube videos on it already, but there are some really good YouTube channels out there for photography, so I do encourage you to use those for research if this is an area you're interested in. It's certainly sort of opened my eyes to things like lighting and things like that, because it does make a lot of difference to the quality of the images you get out of these cameras. But also sort of, trying to sort of process things in post and stuff is not something I'm used to at all. So I mean, you got to hand it to the phone makers. The bag of tricks that's in the phones to get their images as they do with just a digital sensor that's effectively flat is very impressive. But I do like the sort of old school, I suppose, image quality that you get from a standard lens as well. So I will leave it there for now. So I say, I apologise for the lack of normal toy content. I am being a little bit pickier, I'm finding now, in terms of what I'm picking up, because I have fewer holes in my collection, I suppose, than I had when I started out. So I'm just being a little bit more selective about what I do and don't pick up at the minute. And obviously, I have been focusing on Trek toys quite a lot. So don't know what I'll do. I mean, I do intend to keep on releasing a couple a week, but ultimately I'm going to run out of Trek toys. Although I do have another series that I've thought about to replace that as a sort of regular slot. So it just now depends what I'm doing on Thursday. Oh, and there is another what I suspect is going to be a much longer form video that I'm going to put out in due course. Which is part of the reason why I haven't done as much kind of normal filming this week. I've been thinking around that and putting something else together in amongst work, being very, very busy. So you will see that in due course, but I'm not going to give myself a set date for it yet because I don't know how long it's going to take me to pull it all together. But you'll see that eventually. Right, that's it for this one. Cheers.